I've been wanting to cover the Shantae games on this channel for quite a while, and I've just never gotten around to it. I don't know why, because I really enjoy them overall. They're always a blast to play, and yes, I am a grown man that enjoys playing a game where you're a little girl with purple hair that dances and turns into cute little magical animals. Make fun all you want. And now we have the newly released Shantae and the Seven Sirens. Technically newly released. It's not really a new game. It was released on iOS back in September, but it is new for consoles. Full disclosure, I did receive a free copy of this game from WayForward, and no, it will not color my opinion of the game. In this review, I'm also going to keep major story spoilers out of there. I'll go over the story lightly, because there is a pretty good amount of twists and turns in the story that I think are best experienced firsthand. And real quick before we get started today, I'd like to introduce our sponsor, my Patreon. If you'd like to help support the channel and allow me to continue creating content like this for all time, you can become a patron for as little as $1 a month. Link in the video description below, or you can head over to patreon.com/GamerThumbTV. And a quick shout out to the current patrons and channel members supporting the content. Thank you guys. For those that don't know what Shantae is, the series has actually been going on for quite some time. Originally published by Capcom and launched on the Game Boy Color, with the original game titled simply Shantae, which did not sell well at all. Likely because it was released after the Game Boy Advance came out, many people weren't really interested in buying Game Boy Color games anymore. 2010 saw the release of Shantae Risky's Revenge. Shantae and the Pirate's Curse was 4 years later in 2014. Shantae Half Genie Hero in 2016. So Shantae and the Seven Sirens would technically be Shantae 5. And the best way to sum up Shantae and the Seven Sirens is just calling it fun. And that's something that WayForward, the developers of the game, are always really good at. I always say they're my second favorite current game developers right behind Capcom. They make these games, they make them feel very retro but still feel like modern games. Fresh and new while still feeling familiar and old school. They usually end up on my top games list at the end of the year. Games like Mummy Demastered and River City Girls, for example, are on my previous top games of the year lists. On Shantae's fifth adventure, her and her friends decided to take a break from being heroes and take a vacation on a tropical paradise island.
This is the place. Time to kick back and relax. Hey!
The mayor of the island is hosting a half-genie festival, and by the way, half-genies are genies born from a genie mother and a human father. They're all females, and each one has a special power specific to them. I found it entertaining going around the island tracking down the other half-genies and learning more about them. Harmony is the first half-genie ever born. She's got the ability to move the earth around her with earthquake powers. Then we have fill in the blank, get it? She's the zombie half-genie, hence why she's green, whose powers I won't really discuss since it's definitely a story spoiler. Zapple is the electric-based half-genie, so she's got the power to create lightning, activate electrical equipment and such. Vera has refresh magic that allows her to heal things, bring certain creatures back to life. And finally, there's Plink. She's a seer, which gives her a hidden sense that can detect invisible objects, something you will be using quite frequently in the game. All the half-genies get together for the festival and prepare their huge epic performance, but they all get captured, leaving Shantae as the only one.
Hello? Over there is someone.
That's the premise of the game. From here on out, it's up to Shantae to explore the island, rescue the other half-genies, and find out what's going on, including the exploration of a huge sunken city underneath the island that becomes a huge focal point of the storyline. Shantae and the Seven Sirens is very much a Super Metroid-style exploration game, with all the same tropes you'd expect of such a game. There's eventually a huge map that you reveal as you go from point A to point B, exploring all the different areas. And what really makes or breaks these style of games is how easy the map is to read. That's the focal point of the entire game, because that's essentially what's guiding you everywhere. If you fail at making a competent map, the rest of the game will suffer. In fact, 2 games I think did it horribly, and I always use them as examples because the terrible map system really soured the entire experience for me. The first one was Mega Man ZX. I do want to be fair, it is a great game, but that map was a disaster to follow. Thankfully, Capcom improved it quite drastically in the sequel, Mega Man ZX Advent. And one of the worst examples I could think of is Batman Arkham Origins Blackgate. I recently streamed that game. I spent most of my time lost from the complicated map. It's one of the greatest examples of how not to do it. Everything's at an angle, there's multiple layers, it's never clear on where you're supposed to go. In Shantae, you don't have any of these problems. The map is simple, it's easy to read. And you even unlock fast travel points that warp you around to certain rooms, something that should be in most Metroid-style exploration games. I am looking at you directly, Arkham Blackgate. Eventually, you will get to a point where the game doesn't specifically tell you where to go, and you will most likely get lost. I know I did a couple of times during the game. So talking to villagers and other people you meet is encouraged. They give you helpful hints on items you'll need to progress, or give you a general direction of where you need to go. For example, there's one town where everyone has lost some of their dolls, so you know if you come across a doll, you gotta come back here. When you give one of the villagers a doll, they give you a doll, so you know you have to go to other villagers and find out which doll belongs to who, which ends in you getting a key item that you need to progress further. It's all really well done and the game progresses naturally. Once I started this game and really started going in on it, every time I unlocked a new ability that would allow me to get to some area I couldn't cross before, I was excited to see what was coming up next. I didn't want to stop it. And of course there's plenty of enemies in your way which Shantae has to destroy, using the same strategy as Sindel from Mortal Kombat, whipping them with her hair. Minus the gruesome violence, of course. I don't know what hairspray she uses, but that hair is deadly. It even takes down huge bosses. And that's another thing I find incredibly important in retro-style games. Boss battles that feel different from one another are a must, and that's found here. There's a nice variety of bosses. You fight Risky Boots. For those that don't know, that's basically her Bowser, her arch-villain that keeps popping up. You fight her plenty of times, almost like a sub-boss, and then you have the main bosses. I thought it was cool that before each boss, there's a little animated cutscene that plays and introduces them. Each one has a slightly different strategy you have to use to defeat them, and my favorite was probably this monster where you have to hit each brain in a certain pattern before the weak point exposes itself. It was like a memory matching game within a boss fight. It was a ton of fun, and there's certain RPG elements added into this title too, although very lightly. Sometimes monsters drop these monster cards which you can equip 3 of, and they all affect you in different ways, for example allowing you to crawl faster, or making secondary weapons more effective. There's also an item shop that allows you to buy relics that upgrade your attacks. You can make your hair whip stronger and faster. Sindel's got nothing on Shantae, by the way. I do have one criticism with the combat, however, that involves the secondary weapons. You can buy things like homing rockets, fireballs, bouncing balls, extra weapons meant to be used against enemies, and each of those can also be upgraded to more powerful levels, which I did. However, they did feel rather pointless. The combat's still an extremely fun experience as is, but it would have been nice if there were situations where you were forced to use the secondary items to mix things up a bit. I didn't ever really feel like I needed to resort to whipping out my swords, for example. Once I upgraded Shantae's hair attacks, it pretty much kills everything, including bosses, without a whole lot of trouble. Add on the magic that heals you, the ability to refill your magic meter on its own, and an orb that makes you temporarily invincible, and Shantae is almost unstoppable. I think if some of the bosses or enemies required you to use the secondary weapons in order to harm them, it would have added a little bit more of a challenge to the game and would have added some more variety to the combat. Like I said, still very fun to play, but with that added polish polish, it would have been a welcome addition. Another aspect of the game done right is the humor. There were certain situations that I thought were hilarious. The writing was fantastic. This might be a slight spoiler, but it's really not one of the game's key plot points. There's a section where you think you're doing an essential quest to get some special half-genie armor, but it turns out that the armor stops you from moving completely, and then you get trapped inside an action figure box, and you get sold off to a squid that wants you as part of his action figure collection for his man cave. How could you not crack a smile at that storyline? And this squid is the Squid Baron in Risky's Revenge, who was wildly entertaining. He keeps popping up harassing Shantae, and he wants to make his own video game. He's just very childish, and results in one of the funniest, most horrifying moments in the game. Squidsmith at your service. I take adorable little hard squids and melt them down to make more health for you. You haven't seen the last of me, lady. Mark my words, I'll be back. Anywho, I gotta go pick up my sister's kids. Let me know if you see any of them. You can't miss them. They're heart-shaped. Heart-shaped squid kids.
What have I done?
Being a Metroid-style exploration game, Shantae is about as long as it needs to be. These games don't need to be 40 to 50 hour long experiences. On my first playthrough, it took me just a little over 7 hours with a 56% completion rate. Definitely would have taken a little longer if I was going for a 100% rate, and I never felt like I was really rushing through the story or anything. And there is some replayability. After beating the game once, you unlock New Game Plus. That gets you a new costume, more magic, and less defense. And I definitely plan to tackle another playthrough. If you're a fan of retro-style games or even platformers, Shantae and the Seven Sirens is a fun game, and it's really easy for me to recommend at the current price of $29.99. Go show WayForward some love and pick yourself up a copy. I doubt it's a purchase you'll regret. It's available on all current consoles and PC, and it looks like Limited Run does have a physical version available, for now at least. Leave me some comments down below. Have you played the Shantae series, and what are your thoughts on this game? I'll catch you guys later. Since you made it to the end of this video, I assume you enjoyed it, so why don't you go ahead and smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss any new content. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, links in the description below, and if you'd like to support the channel, you can join my Patreon or become a channel member. This is Fabian, I love you guys, and I'll see you next time.